Hello there, Force of Will players. Welcome back to another Wander Wednesday, and this week we're going to go over something that I actually hold near and dear to my heart. It's a deck that I used to play back when it was more prevalent. It was around the time that Rizard in Alice Origins came out. I've always liked control-style decks. Combo and control are kind of my two favorite archetypes in card games in general. And so for me, when people were out playing all the like Rizard Infinites and things like that, and then even afterwards going into the next set, the next cluster as well, there was one control deck that was doing making decent win rates. It had decent win rates, and that deck is Faria Control. So Faria, AO1 Faria, has the effect that whenever a light Regalia enters your field under your control, you get to choose one. If the Regalia is Excalibur, her own Regalia, you get to pick two. So you can pick a Stranger from your deck at random, add it to your hand, draw a card, destroy something that is rested, or Judgment her for 0. So the thing with Faria is she held her front side, her conditional for the Regalia enters the field effects and all that, had the most value out of any of the rulers. The only other one that really came close in terms of value purpose was, I believe, Rizard, in regards to him being able to like add resonators and dump them, etc., etc. But Faria was able to just play a Regalia and +1 off of it, right? So like you play an Excalibur, you get a Stranger, and you draw a card, or you kill something, or you can Judgment her. So every time she got to play an Excalibur, she got to go +1. So she would just generate value as she was playing her cards, which was the best part of her, best part of a control deck. Now, it's all the way down here at the bottom, but we're going to talk about it first. We have Alice enters the Game of Gods, and this is going to be true for all of the old AO1 rulers, but Alice enters the Game of Gods allows you to pick an attribute for a singular light mana at instant speed, and put a Regalia of the chosen attribute into play. It also draws you a card, so it replaces itself. However, the conditional to put it into play is you do not control a Regalia token of the same attribute. So even if you control, let's say, an Excalibur for Faria, even though it is a light Regalia and a water Regalia, you could put a light and or water Regalia token into play. So what this also does is this triggers Faria's automatic effect. So because Alice enters the Game of Gods goes +1, even though you're only getting one option, or not +1, it goes card neutral, right? +0, you draw a card, you replace the card you use. Faria will let you go up again, right? You either get a Stranger, you kill something, or you get to draw a card. So it's just a 1-mana answer that's also in Faria's Energize, so it lets her play it on turn 1 if need be. And that has some decent value applications to it. So she kind of works around as like this little control deck. The rest of the deck, what we got here. So Dark Alice Rabbit Princess, staple card, right? Everyone kind of knows about it, very expensive, etc., etc. Fortunately, it's getting a reprint for our Wanderer GP season. The biggest thing about Dark Alice in this deck is that because she can sack entities, she sacrifices your light Regalia tokens to generate even more value, and that lets you play more light Regalia tokens. That's why Alice enters the Game of Gods is only at 3 in this deck. The space in this was a little bit difficult to find. There are definitely different ways to kind of build around this. However, I wanted to play Awakening of the Winged Lord. And so with Awakening of the Winged Lord in the deck, you also kind of need room for Defense Stance because it is a cancel spell. You want to lower the amount of chance you have because they can't be played off of Awakening of the Winged Lord. And then you just have to also lower card count because I wanted to keep it at 40 if possible. So that is why we're only playing 3 of Alice Enters the Game of Gods, as well as 3 Dark Alice Rabbit Princess. 2 Sacred Waveblade, it's just a good removal option. It's free off of an Excalibur. It also hits additions, so sometimes there are just bad additions that can stop you that you need to hit for some things. In current format, it would be something like Lycion, if you could play this in New Frontiers. But sometimes there are just additions that you want to hit. Also removes resonators. Sometimes you don't want a resonator to hit the grave, you also just want it removed. Also, you can get a card from your Stranger deck. Stranger deck cards are decent. Awakening of the Winged Lord, you're pretty much purely only using it for the look at your top 4, put something that's 2 or less into play. Okay? It's a value card, and you get to play it for free off of Wings of the Archangel. Yggdrasil searches Wings of the Archangel, searches more Excaliburs if you need them. That's really all it is in here for. Unfortunately, 1 mana CMC cards are less impactful due to the existence of Garyon. So that's why I kind of cut down on the Yggdrasil count, because you can't really play this on turn 1 into like a green Energize, because then they get to Garyon, and then they might just go into their next turn and get a free play because you don't have anything, right? So 1 mana cards are just in a poor state at the moment. 3 defense stance, again, it is a counter spell. You don't get to play it off of Wings of the Archangel. Unfortunately, it is not a sword art, it is a mage art, but you get to play it off of Awakening of the Winged Lord, which can be played off of Wings of the Archangel. Genesis is just a way to get more mana. I'm only playing 2. You don't want to see more than 1 ever, but you would like to see this in the early game. It lets you get mage arts rolling, sword arts rolling, etc., etc. Just gets you into more of your cards. Wind of Asgard. I'm just playing 1 of this kind of as like a tech option. You're drawing a lot of cards in general anyway, so I just wanted to put it in there. It's to protect your Regalias. Protect your Faria if you ever need to flip her. Protect things that you need to protect, right? We'll get to Grand Cross Reincarnation at the very end when we get into Strangers, because they kind of work together. Loki's Insight, just a good 2 mana +1 card inherently. It is also quick cast speed, and it's in our colors, which are light and blue. So that's why that's in there. Road to the Sacred Queen. Very powerful card for Faria, actually. The only unfortunate part about Road to the Sacred Queen is it doesn't have Eternal. If it had Eternal, it would be a lot better, because it would stop your opponent from killing you with like Atomic Bahamut, right? So like if you just have a Road to the Sacred Queen in play, your opponent couldn't Baha you the turn that you would attempt to Baha them, right? But because Violet possesses cards like Aegis, there's just a lot of addition removal in general. The rest effect isn't as prevalent, unfortunate. There is still application. It's still nice. It prevents mana dorks from going off. It prevents, again, like swiftness things if they can't deal with the addition itself, like Wolfgang combo, etc., etc. So it does have application. It is a nice card. And it also allows you to get a stranger to your hand on the first turn should you need to play it. Also, you can get it off Awakening of the Winged Lord, which is nice. Fair Spell, just part of the cancel suite. Again, lowered count because you don't have green Energize, so you're not able to play it until you get stones anyway. Our stone lineup, you could work around this stone lineup, add more green instead of the double Ataroctes Memoria, do like 2 Gusting Skies instead. I just kept it that way because I kind of lowered the green count overall in the deck. But otherwise, Fair Spell, just good cancel spell. For Excalibur, it's Faria's Regalia. Not much else I'm going to say about it. Lorite, just another part of the cancel suite. Same thing as Fair Spell, however, you can get Lorite off of Awakening of the Winged Lord, which is why I have him at 3 instead of at 2. And we've already talked about Alessandra's Game of Gods. 4 Moonshade, 4 Light Vapors, 2 Ataroctes Memoria. Again, you can kind of change the stone lineup up to however you see fit, or if you play around like removing Awakening of the Winged Lords, you can kind of change the mana, I don't want to say value, but mana like of the deck, basically. Alright, so the Stranger deck. So we have Morrigan, 2 Morrigan, which has the enter to look at your opponent's hand, choose a card, they remove that card from the game. Valkyrie, whose enter is to remove 2 target non-J ruler, non-magic stone entities your opponent controls from the game. Additions, Regalia, Resonators, so on and so forth. Put a Resonator on top of your owner's deck with Twin Swords. Blue Wizard cancels an automatic ability of a Resonator. Loki is a board wipe for Resonators. And you cancel a chance spell with Liz. So all of these have enters, which is the prevalent part, because for Grand Cross Reincarnation, you pick enters off of your Stranger Resonators, right? That is the 4th option on Grand Cross Reincarnation. So the parts of Grand Cross Reincarnation are your opponent banishes a non-J ruler, non-magic stone entity. You can get a Stranger from your grave to your hand. You can search your deck for a Regalia and add it to hand, or you can activate the enter of a stranger that you reveal as you play Grand Cross Reincarnation, which is almost always one of the effects that you pick. So the more prevalent ones are going to be Morrigan and Valkyrie. Those are the main ones that you'll want to use. The rest are situational and have value, but Morrigan and Valkyrie are the two main ones. The thing with Morrigan is if you use Grand Cross Reincarnation, because you get to pick two, right? You can either you can make them banish something that's in play as well as hand rip from them, all for the cost of one card. So the thing with Grand Cross Reincarnation is just inherently a +1, regardless of what you do, actually. So even if you do Stranger from Grave to Hand, and Regalia, you still go +1 in card value. So that's the best part about Grand Cross Reincarnation. That is why it is in the deck. It's very good and very playable with Faria specifically, because Excalibur gives you the mana to pay it, because it is a sword art and a mage art. And these are just the most powerful enter effects on strangers that you'll probably find. Again, you can kind of make it more toolboxy if you want to add different strangers, so on and so forth, but that's just kind of how the deck functions. With Faria, as you can kind of see in the main deck, you don't really have any threats. Faria is kind of your biggest threat in the main deck, right? But you do have access to strangers. You can play these just straight up in addition to playing them for Grand Cross Reincarnation. So like Twin Swords has quick cast, Blue Wizard has quick cast, Liz has quick cast, and they're all decently statted. So they will eventually get you there. Again, that's the whole point of a control deck. Other things that you would look into adding into either the main or the side would be like Horn of the Sacred Beasts to prevent yourself from decking out, because you don't really have a way to prevent that currently. Death Scythe to prevent J-Rulers, stuff like that. Other Regalia cards that would be simpler for you. The other thing that you can do, and this is kind of the other direction that you can take the deck, is you can play Unknown Mother Goose, Dark Alice's Regalia, and you can play 3 Tea Party members. And 3 Tea Party members will give you the ability to untap your Regalias. And kind of the loop that you can do, not loop, but like gameplay loop, I guess, that you can do with that would be playing like Tea Party before the Decisive Duel, right? You do have to hard cast it now, but you can still play it in order to give your 3 Tea Party members quick cast. If you have enough Regalia, they cost 0, you get more mana out of your Regalias, so on and so forth. That does lock you into Tails, but it is another thing to keep in mind, to look at for different types of like Regalia style decks, since they all kind of function. Okay. But that is going to be our deck profile for this week. Hope you're looking forward to next week's as well. In addition, next week is going to be next weekend, so not the one coming up this weekend, but next weekend will be the Wanderer GP for America. I hope to see you all there. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.